Yeah, this is what I'm going to talk about. Ron, I originally thought that this was a bit of a mundane topic when I discussed it with Ron, and but he said, well, just go through your intake procedures, and which is what I'll do. So it'll just be kind of an anecdotal presentation, and but because I'll be doing 2 more presentations tomorrow on the same system, Tatsamenie Lake, I'm just going to give a bit of background information on the Transboundary Enhancement program before we get going. So, how do we? You should be able to click there we go. Okay. So yeah, just a bit of background on John Joyce mentioned it a little bit about the program, and it was a joint Canada-U.S. program that was initiated in 1987. It was a result of treaty negotiations regarding harvest shares between the 2 countries. Basically, Canada agreed to embark on this enhancement program, and in exchange for increased harvest shares on the Sockeye produced on the Taku and the Stikine. So the program began with an investigation of several lakes in the transboundary systems in the Taku and the Stikine, and there's it was a fairly loose examination. They did a bit of limnology work, some smoke work, and used a fairly simple euphotic volume model to look at potential production in the lakes. That model worked pretty well in the Stikine, but not so well in the Taku as it turned out. But the upshot was that 2 lakes were selected in the Stikine and 2 on the Taku system. And the goal was to take 5 million fertilized eggs from each system and deliver the eggs the fertilized eggs to the Snettisham hatchery in southeast Alaska. And at Snettisham, as John mentioned, the eggs are incubated, and the emergent thermally marked fry are flown back to be put into these identified Canadian nursery lakes. The initial estimates were for an increase of production of 100,000 Sockeye in each system. And the program was initiated in 1989 at Taltan Lake in the Stikine, and then 1990 on the Taku with Little Trapper and Tatsamenie lakes. Little Trapper Lake, where its project was suspended after a few years, and all that effort went solely into Tatsamenie Lake. And the funding for the program is on the Canadian side is funded by a DFO primarily for the egg take, but most of the ancillary work that's associated with the program in Canada is funded by the Northern Fund for GSE. Just a little situational awareness here. The Taku River watershed is in far northwest BC. It's an area about 60,000 square kilometers, and flows into Taku Inlet just south of Juneau. It's a remote system, and there are no roads in the system. Everything has to be flown in. Typically, we fly it in from Atlan, which is any equipment, personnel, and so on, over the whole course of the project, which is about 100 air miles from Tatsamenie Lake. And you'll see in the slides, things are done fairly crudely, and that's kind of a reflection of a couple of things: is the remoteness of the project, and just getting equipment in there and the expense associated with it, and the fact that the Tatsamenie project is, well, certainly since 1997 has been a year-to-year project, basically just looking looking at trying to increase the survivals and not really knowing whether the program is going to continue from one year to the next. As well as there's some additional kind of wilderness values associated with Tatsamenie Lake where we didn't want to put any more infrastructure and so on in there than we necessarily had. Just a little bit about taku sockeye production. It's not a huge production by some West Coast standards in terms of the system, about 220,000 on average. And the catch is around half of that, 110,000 divided between Canada and Alaskan commercial fisheries. There are some small subsistence fisheries and Aboriginal fishery in the Canadian side, but by and large, most of it is fish are caught in commercial fisheries. And I'll just back up previous here. Yeah, and the fisheries are located on the U.S. side in the Taku Inlet here, and on the Canadian side in the main stem Taku River, just directly above the border. There's approximately 15 sockeye stocks in the Taku system, and Tatsamenie is the largest contributor on average, and with about 15% to the total production. But the range is quite large, and the total production has ranged from 4,000 to 85,000. It's kind of timely that mention about variation in escapements. The last 2 years, 2015 and 16, we've seen the lowest escapement and also the highest escapement. I think after all these years I could find a better photo than this. But this is Tatsamenie Lake. It's you can see by the physiography, it's just on the east side of the coast mountains, and it's a deep, cold, oligotrophic lake. And the sockeye that enter the system, they're all lake spawners, and they spawn at the base of these alluvial bands, like you see here, down here, and over here, and the lake itself is at an average depth of over 100 meters, and most of those fish that enter the lake, even in years in very high escapements, we can only account for about 95% of those, or 5% of those fish, I should say. So most of those fish are spawning at depths where we really don't know where they spawn. And in the earlier years, we were doing hydroacoustic work on that lake, and occasionally you would see these clusters of fish at the base of the alluvial fans, but they would show up on the echo sounder. But by and large, once the fish enter the system, they're dispersed, and there's no way to collect broodstock other than collecting it as they enter the system. Ron mentioned, well, just to talk about some do's and don'ts. The first 3 years of the program, starting in 1990, DFO had a stock assessment. Weir, they're counting obviously the counting sampling the sockeye run into the system, but also Chinook and Kobo. And so the operational plan in 1990 was for the first 8 take was to set up at Little Tatsamenie and collect the broodstock at the Weir there and hold them in net pens in the river just upstream from the Weir, and wait for the fish to mature and do the 8 take there. There's one don't, I guess, I advise, and from experience, in the last 27 years working in the system and other system, is that you always try and hold your broodstock as close to the natal system as a natal area as you can, as opposed to any distance away. The first 3 years that we held broodstock here, we had quite high holding mortality, and we had quite a few issues. After the first year, we started using antibiotics, treatments, and so on. We got the holding mortality down, but the egg quality was still quite poor, And the second area that was committed to there, which is not really nothing to do with the egg take, but there's a small stalk that spawns in the sides to it here. And this stalk is genetically distinct from the Tatsamenie stalk. They have a whole different life history. They go out at 0+ fish. And principally because this is not a suitable rearing area, I imagine there's a life history they adopted. So, you know, what we're doing in those first 3 years, we're actually mixing those two stocks. I guess one bright point is that the survivals of those outplanted fish were so low, we probably didn't compromise the genetic discreteness of those stocks. So after the 4th year, we moved the Sockeye Weir up to the outlet of Tatsamenie Lake, and that's where we've collected the broodstock since then. And the broodstock are collected here and then boated up to net pens that are held in the lake here. And this is just a typical pickup weir at Tatsamenie Lake. Stock assessment weir. They also do some work on the Chinook and a few coho come through here. Essentially, standard DFO egg take protocol in terms of how many we can take, maximum 30% of the total escapement. The Tatsamenie run is protracted. It can run from August 3rd right through to October 7th. And just for practical reasons, we have to load the broodstock collection towards the front end of the run, just because of the long maturation time and the onset of winter, basically, in order to spawn those fish in a timely manner. It's not consistent with standard broodstock collection, where you try not to take a temporal segment of the run, but it's just for practical reasons. It's the only way we can do that. And so we just load the fish into a tote, and these are kind of our guidelines. We have supplementary oxygen, of course, and we hold for about a maximum of 10 minutes, and a density of about 12 adults per 200 liters. Our transport time is fairly quick, usually less than 5 minutes. And we also use a sedative aquacalm at 1 part per million, and we found that that's actually a significant contributor to reducing holding mortality. It acts like a sedative, and it's a long-term sedative effect. It's just not a few minutes. It runs into up to 36 hours apparently at that. So it relieves some of that handling stress. And this is just a chart showing our egg collection from 1990 through 2016. The first 5 years, egg take target was 2 million fish. We never reached that. This was at down at Little Tatsamenie, either because of low escapements those years, or because of the broodstock holding issues and the poor egg quality. After 1995, the egg collection target went to 5 million, and that carried through right through 2008. But through several of those years, we weren't able to reach that target because of due to the low escapements. After 2008, the egg collection target went to 2 million, and we more or less reached that target, except for 2015 because of that low escapement. And once the fish are hauled up to the lake, they're putting these floating net pens. They're 1-inch mesh knotless nylon net pens. And our maximum, these are guidelines, our maximum loading density is around 9 fish per cubic meter, which translates to about 20 kilograms per meter cubed. And as we remove the fish for sorting and so on, that density, of course, goes down over the course of the project. Water temperatures up here, at the beginning of the holding period, they average around 14 degrees and drop down to about 6 degrees in in mid-October. The maximum holding period that we've utilized there has been 68 days from capture to spawning, and the median holding period is around 35 days. We normally will take about 30% more broodstock than is required if the escapes allow it. Okay, thank you. I'll hurry up here. There's our holding mortality. This is when we started using aquacol, and that is when 1 year we couldn't get it because of the supplier. It's a long story, not worth repeating, but after that our holding mortalities were significantly lower. So we're looking at moving the net pens in and sorting the fish just by taking the cover off, dividing the pen, and standard sorting techniques. And for at Tatsamenie, we aim for about 550,000 eggs per egg take. That makes for efficient incubator loading at the hatchery. And of course, maturation time is variable year to year, so it depends when we start. Usually it's around mid-September. And fecundity of Tatsamenie is averaged around 4,000 fish for the duration of the project. We have do the egg take in a heated 16 by 16 tent, and we've done egg takes in temperatures as low as -15, so need the heat in the tent to keep things liquid most of the time. Standard ADF&G IHN avoidance protocol. In the last few years, we've adopted the OIE protocol, which is not that much different, just with the addition of a saline rinse before and after the fertilization. 2 males, 2 females cross. And virus-free water, of course, we pipe off of a high-grade stream, comes off the mountain, and that's piped into the tent. And we typically get our ice, which we use to cool the eggs for shipping from Snettisham. And we take ovarian BKD. That's just showing the eggs, water hardening in the Obidine solution. Pooled in the cooler, we use plastic bags. Now we started out with kind of moist incubators using a basket arrangement, but for a host of reasons, they decided to go with the plastic bags, and typically about 60 to 70,000 eggs per bag, and addition of about 7 liters of virus-free water, and cool the eggs down for transport. We sort of aim for 5 to 7 degrees for arrival at the hatchery, but if we have to hold them overnight or longer, we try and aim for around 2 degrees. Egg transport. Egg transport is an issue. It is a real challenge because the eggs are time sensitive. Late fall weather. You have issues with, of course, it's only 50 miles between the hatchery and Tatsamenie Lake, but you have some major train between there. Of course, you're battling daylight in the late fall, and customs can be an issue too. And we do sampling, of course, matching scales and nodalists, and that way we can reconstruct the adult run coming back into not only to Tatsamenie Lake, but we do a total adult run reconstruction for the total production. And because we have all these different cohorts that I'll be talking about tomorrow, we can calculate the survivals based on what our sampling tells us. And that's looking at the percent of enhanced fish that's been produced since 95 through 2015. So we have seen a bit of an increase. Basically, over the time period, our fertilization and eggs delivered has increased a little bit, but that's pretty much driven by that data point. Basically, it's been pretty much flatlined since we started, and that's kind of a summary of what we've done so far. It's 62 million delivered, and total fry planted of 44 million. IHN losses of 5.7%. I'll be better. I'm not quite done, but I'm done.